Okay, this is going to be a basic video on shifters, a basic way to do them, and a few things to point out and show you on possibly making your own and the different setups. Plus what I'm going to do with this tranny later. First off, this is a aftermarket bracket that goes on. I think this might actually be from Overkill. But you can take the factory bracket that goes on, the factory bracket on there. Let's see, I think it kind of goes up, and I don't know, it's got this, then it's got a piece that comes out, and then the rod goes through here and goes to the frame. Well, what I've done is taken and either beaten it out and cut it off, and then just drilled a hole in it. And that's basically what I'm running now. To use this in the shifter I use now, I'd have to make new rods and stuff. Plus I was saving this so when I do build something better. But yeah, then you just run your rod back to whatever shifter you made. But then there's some people just will take, you know, they got this, they got whatever on there, like that. And then they'll just take a piece of rod and basically a bolt hole. And they'll have this coming up through the floor with a handle on it, you know, and shift it back and forth, which is fine, simple like that. You won't have to worry about hitting park on that. The reason most people run shifters is actually so you can run a park lockout, so you're just going for reverse to drive and forward gears. You don't have to worry about hitting in park. I like that idea because keeps you going, and in a derby, moving is the key. Don't sit still. You don't want to sit there playing, trying to find a gear. But if it's your first derby, that works fine. Now, a tip here, because we've run these shifters forever, because when you're running a street stock or pure stock or a bomber, that's all you run for a shifter. You don't care. Now, depending on how you do it, if you do it with the stock setup, I think like this, up, I'm pretty sure, yeah, if you have it up like this, you're going to pull it back for park and push it forward for low gear. So it's going to be backwards of what it would be like if the car had a center shifter, factory center shifter. But what you can do to reverse that is just basically all you have to do is just turn that upside down. And then forward will be park and back will be, you know, low gear. So you can just do that, simple if that's what you want to do. And if you build your shifter different. But now if you're building a shifter, most of the times, unless you do it some wacky way, it's always going to be up, because basically your shifter's going to come up from down here, and this is where your rod will be attached. Then it's come up to here somewhere, and there's going to be a pivot point. So basically the shifter's already, your shifter is going to be reversing the direction, and that's why they're also set this way. So when the cars have a factory shifter with a mechanical linkage, it works right. Now, there's two ways of mounting a shifter on here when you build yours, depending on how you prefer. A lot of people will just use these two side holes, and then they'll have the shifter off the side here. Basically, all you'd have to do is make a plate, basically a right angle plate from here to here, with a bolt through it, whatever type of rod, going back and forth. You wouldn't have a park lockout. But then a simple thing to do would be, if you have a plate coming out like this, have another plate on the back side of it, then have your bolt welded out with your rod, and then you could just simply drill a hole somewhere in that plate and put a pin. And then when you go to make your rod from here, basically drill your hole for your pin, stick the tranny. You're going to have to know where park and reverse is. Stick the tranny in reverse. Butt your handle up against that pin you're going to use for your park lockout, and then make your rod from there. That basically, so it can't go any farther, so it won't go in the park. And then when you take the pin out, like to come and park the vehicle, you can push it forward. And what most people like I do, then the second thing that you do at that point is you could, once the shifter's in the park position, you could drill from the back side of that hole and have a park lock. So basically take your pin that normally locks it from going into park. Now when you put it in the park, you can use that same hole with a hole through your shifter to actually lock the tranny into park, so you don't have to worry about it jumping out of park. Most derby places still want you in the car when you started, but you know, I guess they think there's always something in the tranny that could go bad, because the problem is most derby guys just slap this stuff together, so and that's usually an issue. But there you go. I like to mount mine on all 4 tops, and the reason being is when you have the shifter over here, it's gonna be really close to your seat. It's gonna be like right here, and you'll come up to issues of you have to cut a lot of the floor out. You'll have a lot of issues of it trying to hit, and either yourself or the floor. You'll have contact issues. You're always gonna have contact issues when with this rod going across. You have to cut a pretty big hole. What I'll do is I'll cut a slice, and then I'll start hammering it and basically round it up to keep it from the rod from contact, because the rod could actually catch on the floor and, you know, stop your tranny. Another problem I had once in a derby, like I said, when I'll take this bracket and modify it, you want to make sure, see how this has round edge as well? I didn't do that, and I had a nice square sharp edge, and as the car was folding up and the floor was getting close to shifter, it actually came up, made a hole in the floor, and locked into place, and it was a bear to get that loose. I ended up bending my shifter, and then from the rest of the derby I got it loose. But then I was, even though I had a lockout shifter, I had to pull the lockout out, because then I was searching for gears. So you gotta be careful about that. Make sure you round off your edges, and if you make your own bracket, make sure it's not too high. Now when you adjust the height of this bracket and lower it, all you're really going to do is change how much throw you got here. That's another thing. If you're a short person and you say you put this in a stock Cadillac, my Cadillac shifter is what was originally made, and I shortened it down. But for the Cadillac, because this transmission's so far in stock position of the 72 Cadillac, I had a long bend in it. If I wouldn't have done that, I would have never been able to get it all the way in the park and reverse. So there's some things to think about. You also don't want a shifter that just, you know, practically hits the floor because you've made your brackets too long. If you make them too long, they're gonna have to move so far. If you make them shorter, it's gonna be faster. But then you're gonna also, if you're trying to actually shift it, you know, in the other gear, otherwise it's just gonna be reverse first, because you're gonna be able to feel the gears. Now for making the rods, all I do is I go get a simple ball socket, and I'll buy, you know, at Ace Hardware, a simple ball socket that'll have, we can thread a bolt in it. And then I'll find a bolt that screws into that thing that has the most amount of thread as you can, so you can adjust it. And then I'll cut the head off that bolt, and I'll do the same thing on this side. A ball socket with a bolt with enough threads, a jam nut, and, you know, as long as it can be, and cut off. And then I just take, once I get it figured out, I clamp it to a piece of round bar stock, the 2 bolts, and weld it in place. Simple. You know, you don't have to go get hem joints and all this crazy stuff. Just a nice 3/8 bolt, 5/16. I think I use 5/16, whatever you want to use. Clamp them together, and then all you have to do is weld down the side of the bolts. You can also stagger it where this one the rod lays on top of that one, this one the rod lays under the bolt, so you can have it, move it up and down, different stuff to clear different things. Of course I can't find the bolt to show you how it's done. I was looking for it, but anyways, I have because the second thing, here's an example of these 2 bolts that are shiny there in the center. This is so I can put my shifter on a Turbo 350. These 4 outer bolts actually bolt to my shifter, which is the same pattern as a 400. That's a Turbo 400, by the way. And then this hole helps support the shifter. Now the problem I have, and you want to use 1/4 inch, I made my shifter out of 3/16, and that's where the big issue came. What I tried to do though is make it to where I curved the piece that went here. I curved a piece that's basically, mine runs a, you might call it a shift gauge, all the way down here, and the shifter sits in the center of that, and the hole goes through. Also, if you're building something like that, where you have a pin that goes through 2 pieces of bolts like this, and say you can't get the hole right, the trick to do is going through, if it's like, oh man, it doesn't quite work, I need to move it, you can wallow out the hole, stick washers on it, set the washers to where you need it since the hole's too wallowed out, then tack the washers in. Once they're, you know it's right, then you can fully weld them and it'll fix the hole for you. Or if you want to reinforce the holes anyways too, you could just add washers to it, but then basically that's what you do. Now, this tranny here, as you can see, has a big old chunk out of it, because when I was building the last car, I dropped it, but it ain't dead yet. That's why, you know, I got this off. I've got some plans, huge plans. I would have already started doing it, but the weird steel I got is impossible to drill holes in. And I'm going to need to drill some really precise holes. Basically, I'm going to make my own steel bell housing. I'm not going to go as crazy as to make my own steel tail shaft yet, I don't think. I might just buy one, or I might be crazy and build it, but I'm going to build a all steel bell housing to bolt on there, because this is a 8-bolt pump. It's got enough support, but that's not going to be all. It'll also have a plate running all the way from the pan to the mount to back here. It'll have enough space above where it bolts to the tranny to have bolt-in ribs coming down it to be able to attach into. This will have a plate. That's why somebody asked me to do a video on shifters. That's why I'm kind of doing this. The only reason I'm not building a new shifter yet is I'm going to have all this extra steel and stuff on here, so my shifter I have won't work anyways, but I'm probably just going to take, however I design this, I'm just probably going to build the shifter right into it. So it'll be one unit. So basically a piece of flat steel. It'll bolt through the stock bolts here, but it'll also be attached to the plate that's going through here through bolts or somehow. Don't quite know exactly how I'm going to do it. All figured out, and then there'll be ribs going across, at least 4 going up to the new bell housing. So basically there's a sneak peek of the huge plans. I've never broken a tranny, but why take the risk? This tranny may look like crap because it's dirty, but it is actually a well-built transmission built by one of my friends. So there you go, basics of shifters. Like I said, new, just use this for now. Get you out there and going. Later on, when you really know you want a derby, then you can think about building your own shifters. Or there's a guy on Facebook called Tough Parts, I believe. You can look through my videos and find a review on the derby manufacturers. Plenty of guys out there that you just buy a shifter if you want, and they're all really nice. This guy on Facebook, I'm pretty sure it's Tough Parts. I know the first word is tough. His shifters are really nice because they also have dentation, so instead of just being like mine can flop. In fact, what will happen with mine, even though I've chopped it down and it's lighter, okay, is sorry, that was a wife. When I go and make a hit and drive, hit a car, it's kind of like automatic. It'll shifter will flop forward and then the car's in reverse, so sometimes I'll just automatically start going backwards after I hit a guy. Same thing, I'll hit somebody with the back end and it'll slam in the first gear and I'll start going the other way. So sometimes it works out, but not always. Most of the time it just hits neutral. So that's an idea to think about. His dentation, so there you know, for a second it'll actually hold it in place. So that's an idea to think about. Really complicated to build your own. I've thought about it, but I don't really care. Anyways, here you go. Hope that's helpful. See you soon.